Rome was a city of 7 hills. 7 hills with 7 stories to tell. Tales of wars and conquests, of emperors and their rise and fall, of power struggles and the thirst for more. But amidst these tales, there lived a man. He wasn't born into royalty. He wasn't handed power on a platter. He clawed his way up, bit by bit, inch by bloody inch. And when he finally stood at the peak, he had conquered not just Rome, he had conquered the hearts and minds of men. His name was Julius Caesar. And today we unveil him. No, not the statue in the Capitol, not the face on the coin, but the man behind the legend. Gaius Julius Caesar was born in 100 BC in Rome. Well, technically his father was Gaius Julius Caesar, a member of the Roman patriciate, while his mother was Aurelia Cata. His mother's family, the Cata, were also so essentially Caesar was born into the upper crust of Roman society. So much for the common theory. He was related to Marius, a general who defeated the sons of Sylla and helped the populares regain control of Rome after the Civil War. His great-uncle was also Lucius Cornelius Sulla, who had been dictator of Rome during the late Roman Republic. So yeah, he was related to one of Rome's most notorious dictators. How's that for irony? But don't think for a minute that being related to the rich and powerful was a cakewalk. Caesar was just another pretty face until he proved himself to be something more. In 88 BC, when Caesar was 12 years old, his father died and he inherited his estate, which included a villa at a place called It was here that Caesar grew up, and it was here that he began to dream. He had dreamed of conquering the world, of bringing Rome to the very top. And who can blame him? The Roman Republic was at its most vulnerable, its most fractured. There were civil wars raging across the land. Caesar wanted more than anything to bring Rome together. But first, he had to make a name for himself. So at the age of 19, Caesar left Subiaco and moved to Rome to study rhetoric. At the same time, he also began to cultivate political connections, which would prove useful later in life. In 78 BC, Sulla returned to Rome and seized power. And since Caesar was related to him, he could have easily lived a life of luxury and comfort. But Caesar was ambitious. He wanted more. So when Sulla seized control of Rome, Caesar fled to North Africa. When Sulla died in 78 BC, Caesar returned to Rome and began to plot against the new dictator, Pompey. We all know how that turned out. Caesar got kicked out of Rome and had to live in exile. This guy had more bad luck with dictators than a cat in a doghouse. In 63 BC, Caesar came back to Rome and ran for consul, the highest position in Roman politics. He won and became the most powerful man in Rome, but he wasn't satisfied. He wanted more, so he started making enemies. In 60 BC, he formed the first triumvirate, with Pompey and Crassus to solidify his power. The triumvirate ruled Rome for the next 5 years. When Crassus died, Caesar crossed the Rubicon River with an army and marched on Rome. Pompey fled, and Caesar chased him down and killed him. He became the dictator of Rome and the first man in the chain of Roman emperors. But Caesar didn't stop there. He set his sights on the whole of Europe. He defeated the Gauls and made himself master of their lands. He then turned his attention to Egypt, where he met his end. On March 15, 44 BC, a group of senators stabbed Caesar to death in the Senate. He was 55 years old. But Caesar's legacy lived on. In the centuries that followed, he was deified, and his adopted son Octavian, who later became known as Augustus, established the Roman Empire. And so ended the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire began. But that's a story for another day. For now, let's focus on Caesar. What was he like? What was he all about? We don't know much about his personal life, but what we do know is that he was a man on a mission. He was a man who wanted to make Rome great again. He was a man who wanted to conquer the world. Was he successful? Well, that depends on how you look at it. He did conquer a lot of land, but he also started a civil war that resulted in the deaths of millions of Romans. He was a dictator, a title that basically means he was a king, but he was never satisfied with what he had. He always wanted more. Was he a good leader? Well, that depends on who you ask. Some historians say he was a tyrant who cared only about power. Others say he was a visionary who saw the potential in Rome and wanted to bring it to the world stage. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. What we do know is that Caesar was a man of contradictions. He was a member of the elite class, but he wasn't born into power. He was ambitious, but he was also reckless. He was a great general, but he was also a lousy judge of character. He was a man of the people, but he was also a dictator. He was Julius Caesar, the man who conquered Rome and the hearts and minds of men.